I cut ties with a friend who was causing trouble, and they smeared my name, turned my friends against me, and alienated others, completely destroying my social status. In the bustling heart of downtown, amid the glass towers and the relentless buzz of corporate life, I found myself forging what I believed would be a lifelong friendship with Johnny. We were associates in a prominent marketing firm, thrown together by chance but bonded by a mutual zeal for innovative ideas and a shared rhythm in our work ethics. It was a connection that seemed destined to thrive beyond the typical workplace alliances, characterized by our lunchtime brainstorming sessions and after-hours collaborations that blurred the line between professional and personal. Johnny was more than just a colleague. He was my confidant and mentor in those early days. His charismatic presence and sharp intellect made him a beacon for many within our office, yet he chose to invest his trust and friendship in me. We celebrated each project victory with a fervor that only true friends could understand, and supported each other through every professional setback. The camaraderie we shared was not only rare but deeply cherished. Lunch breaks were our cherished catch-up sessions, an opportunity to swap stories, share jokes, and combine our spare change for extra ice cream. These shared moments of youthful joy and carefree laughter were the beats that nurtured our growing friendship. However, as the quarters rolled into years, subtle shifts began to emerge in our dynamic. Johnny received a well-deserved promotion, one that placed him in a more strategic role within the company. Initially, I was thrilled for him, proud even, but it wasn't long before his new position began to cast a shadow over our interactions. His availability dwindled, meetings were missed, and those invaluable shared moments at lunch became sparse and distracted. But Johnny changed. The guy who used to be full of life became distant and quiet. Our friendship, which felt like it would last forever, started slipping away. The connection we had slowly faded, leaving me feeling lost and uncertain. The initial signs were subtle, almost imperceptible, but gradually they became more evident. The first indication was our diminished conversations. The humorous banter that used to echo during our shared walks seemed to dwindle down to barely audible whispers, replaced by a silence that spoke volumes of the emotional chasm that was building. I noticed a change not just in frequency, but in tone. Our conversations, once filled with mutual enthusiasm and support, now seemed laden with subtle jibes and a competitiveness I hadn't felt before. Johnny, once my greatest ally, started to feel like a silent rival. His remarks, which I once took as constructive criticisms, began to feel undercutting and dismissive. The strain reached a tipping point during a high-stakes project where I felt undermined in front of our team. It became clear that what we had could no longer coexist with the competitive fervor of our office environment. It was a painful realization, one that confronted me not just during office hours, but in the quiet solitude of my apartment. For the sake of my mental well-being and career sanity, I knew I had to distance myself from Johnny. This decision, fraught with emotional and professional risk, marked a profound shift in my life at the firm, setting the stage for a series of events that would challenge my resilience and redefine my understanding of workplace relationships. The decision to distance myself from Johnny was neither impulsive nor easy. It required a meticulous calculation of the potential fallout, alongside a hefty dose of emotional fortitude. The friendship that had once been my sanctuary within the office had morphed into a source of constant unease, clouding my judgment and dampening my spirit. I deliberated over our last interaction, replaying the moment where his veiled criticisms had not only undercut my ideas, but had also subtly questioned my competence in front of our team. That meeting was a turning point. I realized that preserving my professional integrity and emotional well-being necessitated a boundary between us. Initially, I attempted to limit our interactions to strictly professional exchanges. During meetings, I would keep my contributions succinct and direct, avoiding any personal commentary that might invite the banter we used to enjoy. In the office, I exchanged polite nods instead of the warm smiles of our previous camaraderie. These subtle shifts were my armor, a way to shield myself from the discomfort of our changing relationship. However, Johnny noticed these changes quicker than I anticipated. His initial reaction was one of confusion, which quickly soured to irritation when it became evident that the distance was intentional. The backlash began subtly. I first noticed it in the way he began to withhold information. Details about client feedback or team meetings, which he would have once shared without hesitation, were now passed to me through intermediaries. This tactic not only isolated me professionally, but began to erode my standing within our team. Johnny's influence was undeniable, and his selective communication ensured that I was always a step behind, scrambling to catch up with decisions already set in motion without my input. As my professional isolation intensified, Johnny's tactics grew more aggressive. He started to question my contributions in team meetings, often dismissing my proposals with a condescending smirk or a sharp retort that left little room for debate. These public displays not only undermined my confidence, but also began to color my colleagues' perceptions of my capability. Whispers and sideways glances started to fill the spaces where nods of approval and congratulatory pats on the back had once been. The environment I had thrived in became a labyrinth of skepticism and doubt, masterfully orchestrated by the friend I once trusted. Even though I tried to understand, it felt like Johnny was slipping through my fingers. The person I once shared everything with was now a stranger, and I struggled to navigate this new reality without him by my side. The smearing of my name was not limited to closed-door meetings or subtle exchanges. Johnny leveraged his charisma and network to cast further aspersions on my professional reputation. He shared anecdotes that painted me as unreliable and uncooperative, often embellished with enough humor to make them stick. These stories spread through our office like wildfire, fueled by the allure of office gossip and the credibility Johnny still commanded. Socially, the consequences were immediate and painful. Colleagues who had once sought my company at lunch or coffee breaks now gave polite excuses to avoid me. Invitations to after-work gatherings dwindled until they ceased altogether. The sense of alienation extended beyond the confines of our office walls. It seeped into my professional network, tainting my connections and opportunities within the industry. The emotional toll was immense. Each day at the office became a test of endurance. I found myself grappling with a spectrum of emotions, from anger and betrayal to a profound sense of loss. The isolation was suffocating, and the professional setbacks left me questioning my own abilities and worth. The office, once a place of ambition and fulfillment, had become a battleground where I was constantly on the defensive, wary of the next rumor or undermining comment. Feeling cornered and desperate, I sought to understand the extent of the damage. Conversations with a few trusted colleagues revealed the depth of Johnny's influence and the complexity of the web he had woven against me. Their hesitancy to speak openly, coupled with their sympathetic glances, confirmed my worst fears. Johnny's narrative was now the dominant one, and my professional image was in tatters. Amid this turmoil, there were moments of clarity and resolution. I realized that surrendering to despair would only validate Johnny's portrayal of me as weak and incapable. Determined not to let his actions define my career, I began to strategize a comeback that focused on professionalism and resilience. I started documenting our interactions, gathering concrete evidence of Johnny's manipulative tactics. I renewed my efforts to deliver impeccable work, ensuring that my contributions could stand up to the most rigorous scrutiny. Additionally, I sought the counsel of our HR department, presenting my case with a level of detail that left no room for doubt. This move, while risky, was necessary to expose the undercurrents of manipulation and sabotage that had poisoned my professional life. The HR intervention was a turning point, catalyzing a series of investigations that gradually began to shift the narrative within our office. Despite these efforts, the journey to reclaim my professional standing and personal peace was fraught with challenges. The betrayal I felt was not easily erased, and the path to rebuilding trust within my professional circle was a slow and precarious one. Yet, through this adversity, I discovered an inner resilience and a determination to rise above pettiness and sabotage. I realized that while I could not control Johnny's actions or the opinions of others, I could certainly control my response and my commitment to my values in my career. The annual company retreat, traditionally a time for celebration and camaraderie, became the arena where the full extent of Johnny's campaign against me crystallized into a glaringly painful reality. The event was set in a picturesque lodge outside the city, an ironic backdrop to the internal turmoil I was facing. As colleagues gathered, the air was thick with anticipation, not just for the planned activities, but for the undercurrents of office politics, now more pronounced than ever due to Johnny's maneuverings. The pinnacle of conflict arrived on the second evening during the gala dinner, a formal affair meant to foster unity and toast to our collective successes. However, as speeches commenced and accolades were handed out, the isolation I felt was palpable. Whispers ceased when I approached, smiles faltered, and conversations ended abruptly. A stark contrast to the previous years when I was at the heart of the festivities. It was during these moments that I overheard a group of newer colleagues discussing Johnny's latest tale, disparaging my contributions to a crucial project. The rumor was not just a slight against my professional competence but painted me as actively sabotaging the team's efforts. The sting of betrayal was sharp, as these were not just Johnny's whispers anymore. They had become a narrative others were all too willing to believe. Fueled by a mix of hurt and indignation, I realized that passive endurance was no longer an option. The time had come to confront the situation head-on. Gathering my resolve, I approached Johnny, who was holding court among a group of laughing colleagues. The circle opened, the laughter died down, and the air bristled with tension as I asked to speak with him privately. We moved away from the curious eyes and found ourselves on the quiet balcony overlooking the dark woods. The contrast between the serenity of our surroundings and the storm brewing between us could not have been starker. "Johnny," I began, my voice steady despite the turmoil inside. "I know what you've been saying about me. This ends tonight." Johnny's face, usually so composed, betrayed a flicker of surprise before his features settled into a cool mask of indifference. "I'm not sure what you've heard, but I think you're taking office chatter too seriously," he responded smoothly, a calculated dismissiveness in his tone. "This isn't just chatter," I countered, feeling a surge of clarity as I spoke. "It's targeted, and it's destructive. You've changed, and not for the better. We were friends once, but now you're using what you know about me to break me down. Why?" For a moment it seemed as if he might deny it, but then his posture relaxed, a resigned sigh escaping him. "Look, it's not personal. This is how the game is played at our level. You should know that. I have to protect my position, and sometimes that means playing hardball." The honesty, stark and unembellished, hit me harder than any of his rumors had. This was no longer the Johnny I knew. This was a strategist speaking, one who saw relationships as assets or obstacles. "I don't believe in winning this way," I said firmly. "You're right, we're not just colleagues. We were friends. And that should have meant something. If this is how you choose to climb the ladder, count me out. But I won't let you drag my name through the mud to do it." The conversation ended without resolution, as I knew it would. But it marked a significant shift within me. From that point on, I knew that my path would not align with Johnny's, that I would have to forge my own way forward, rooted in the values I held dear: integrity, respect, and trust. I walked away from that confrontation with a heavy heart, but a clear vision. The next steps were daunting but necessary. I would need to rebuild not just my reputation, but also my sense of self, independent of the toxic dynamics that had come to define my professional life. The fight to clear my name was just beginning, but it would be fought on my terms, with transparency and dignity. As the retreat drew to a close, I prepared myself for the challenges ahead, strengthened by the conviction that truth, eventually, would restore what malice had sought to destroy. The resolution I found during that encounter with Johnny started to lay the road for my recovery and vengeance against the harm he had caused, even as the retreat came to an end and we all went back to our regular lives at work. In the days that followed, I felt a mixture of fear and resolve as I began to negotiate the turbulent waters of office politics with a renewed sense of purpose. I started by contacting human resources. I called a departmental meeting and brought a comprehensive notebook documenting all the times Johnny had made me look bad, backed up by emails and eyewitness accounts from coworkers who had seen him in action. Not only was my name being cleared, but a pattern of behavior that was detrimental to the company culture as a whole was being brought to light. The HR department opened a formal investigation into the situation since they were responsive and concerned. Even though it took longer than I would have liked for corporate justice to go forward, the simple act of having my complaint acknowledged made me feel like I had regained some measure of my dignity. At the same time, I started to restore my damaged reputation. I made personal contact with coworkers to engage with them on ongoing initiatives and offer my assistance and insights when needed, rather than to argue my position. Re-establishing a connection with the professional world I had been cut off from was more important than simply demonstrating my value. These efforts started to pay off gradually. As initiatives gained traction and my efforts were recognized, the story started to change. The ability and dedication that had been questioned were now apparent and unquestionable. A few loyal coworkers provided essential support during this experience. My strongest ally turned out to be Sarah, a peer who had worked with Johnny and me since our early days at the company. She shared her excellent experiences working with me, actively dispelling rumors in addition to offering emotional support. Mark, a more recent team member who had personally heard Johnny's derogatory comments and was prepared to voice his concerns, was another important ally. Their assistance not only lifted my spirits, but also contributed to my credibility being restored among colleagues. In these mediation sessions, it became evident that although ambition propelled Johnny's activities, they were also an ill-advised attempt to maneuver around his insecurities. Though it did give a level of intricacy to the matter that I had not previously fully grasped, recognizing this did not excuse his behavior. Months later, my position inside the company started to return thanks to my hard work, HR's assistance, and the mediation process. Coworkers began to get past the gossip and note the differences between my real behavior and what Johnny was portraying. Invitations to work together on projects multiplied, and the strained professional connections started to heal. The trip was enlightening yet emotionally exhausting. With every stride ahead, I was able to strengthen my fortitude and reaffirm my dedication to upholding my integrity in the face of difficulty. I also came to understand the value of having a network of people who will support you through difficult times, and when you try to start over. I had learned the value of genuine professional companionship from Sarah, Mark, and a few other people. I started to change attitudes in the office by concentrating on mending relationships and repairing my reputation with diligent, honest work and transparent communication. After ending my relationship with Johnny, I learned that although the road to recovery could be difficult and drawn out, it also presented a chance for tremendous advancement on both a personal and professional level. As time passed, a year after the challenging events at work, things started to calm down. Johnny's public apology helped reduce the office tension. Although my reputation wasn't completely untouched, it was mostly mended, bringing me a fresh sense of clarity and purpose. A valuable lesson about awareness and the real nature of relationships had been provided by the experience. I realized who my true allies were. Coworkers like Sarah and Mark, whose bravery and devotion had been vital. This insight changed the way I approached business partnerships. I grew warier but also more appreciative of sincere relationships, cherishing those who showed honesty and provided support during difficult times. Our relationships, which had been established in the face of hardship, became stronger, and our workplace once again seemed like a welcoming community. I made a conscious effort to expand my professional network going forward. To promote an environment of transparency and cooperation, I started a peer support group at work. The group provided a secure environment for discussing difficulties and victories, promoting candid communication and mutual support. Through this program, I was able to heal some of the rifts within our team and establish myself as a leader in creating a more welcoming and upbeat work environment. In addition, my experiences have given me a stronger sense of resilience and a better comprehension of both professional and personal boundaries. I discovered how crucial it is to establish and uphold boundaries with coworkers as well as with myself when it comes to controlling how I react to stress and conflict. This self-awareness helped me maintain a better work-life balance and gave me a better understanding of how to face difficulties without sacrificing my morals or well-being. Update 1. A year later, I'm thriving in my role, respected and valued. The office feels like a community again, and I'm leading initiatives that foster teamwork and integrity. My journey has strengthened me, and I look forward to the future with optimism and renewed confidence. Update 2. Some people say my story is a vivid illustration of the challenges that can occur in a professional working environment, and the importance of protecting one's mental health and professional image. It shows how relationships can change over time and the impact they have on individual careers. I helped one person find empathy by detailing the struggle to regain honor and status in the company, as well as the lessons of resilience. I'm glad that the story provides a realistic look at the dark side of competition in business and the value of upholding principles and professional ethics, which at least helps people like me be more positive in terms of work. Somewhat psychological. Thanks for following my story.